Welcome to I Have Something to Say, where unfiltered opinions meet raw authenticity. If you're tired of the same old canned answers and crave genuine conversations about real issues, then you've landed in the right spot. So buckle up for a roller coaster of diverse perspectives. Yours truly, Samí Haiman-Marrero, and my co-host, Chris Majoka, will dive headfirst into topics that impact our daily lives. From the boardrooms to the streets, get ready to hear real people cut through the BS and deliver the discussions you've been waiting for. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of I Have Something to Say. And I'm very excited because this is a conversation that's been in the making for a hot minute. And it's with my friend María Revelles. You are fuego, fire. That's how I want to describe you. How are you, Maria?
I'm doing wonderful, Sammy. So happy to be here with you today.
Yes, and just a little bit of background. Listen, Maria is a Boricua like me, an organizer and advocate for the community like me, but she's like way, way more involved than me. You know, she's been a union leader, an organizer, really involved with housing fairness and mitigating food deserts and climate change and just, I mean, everything and anything that needs intervention. Maria, I just feel like you're always at the heart of it. And I want to, like, now publicly thank you. Thank you for all you've done throughout the years to the community.
It's been a pleasure. It's really been a passion, and the healing of the community is always holistic. Like we do arts and we do culture and we feed people because that's where the needs are. Sammy, because you are on the trenches too.
Yes, and so and that's how we met, right? And it's been throughout the years that we've really been able to spend time together, have meaningful discussions together, march together, advocate, and go to Tallahassee together. Here in the state of Florida, and you've been I mean, your career is stellar in terms of community engagement and impact. And so why were you so involved, right? And where did this all come from and how did it begin?
It's funny because since I was a young girl, I grew up with the idea that one person can change the world, right? My family left Spain after the Civil War, and we were always, very very involved. We had my grandfather in Puerto Rico. He was an accountant, and he used to account for free to cooperatives of the women that used to do handcrafts or tobacco or things like that. So we always had this idea that whatever you have, you give it, do it forward, move it forward. So when I went to college, I started, of course, doing union organizing, union labor since I was very young, and it's only that desire to, our time in this world is limited. Sami, it's limited. So if we can leave this piece of the universe better than how we found it, it's all gonna be worth it. The journey is gonna be worth it.
Yeah, and so I know that you started your work up in the Northeast, not here in Central Florida. Tell me about your early beginnings, and what drove you to to do community advocacy and work to the underinvested and under-resourced communities.
Actually, I started in Puerto Rico. I started in the
Mm.
island of Puerto Rico. My first job was with the Federación Central de Trabajadores. My president was a woman, Luisa Aceveda, legendary labor leader. And I started while I was in college in la Universidad de Puerto Rico. At that time, the unions had a project to organize, give the right to organize for public sector workers in Puerto Rico, which didn't have, any kind of rights at all. And I I met in the trenches organizing workers that used to do parks and rec, and there were government workers with families, and making $800 a month. We had workers that were giving out food stamps, but they themselves, their salaries were so low that they qualify for food stamps themselves. So that idea of let's bring the people to the let's bring the power to the people. People is wise. They can make their own decisions. We can do things better. That's really where everything started. From them, I work for SEIU 1199, Service Employee International Union in New York. The Service Employee International Union is huge. It's almost 2 million workers in the United States only, and especially in New York is very powerful. And over there, for many years, I organized hospital workers, nurses, uh, CNAs, all that kind of hospital members, and bargain with those employers. I bargained, I want to say, more than 100 contracts in my life, and build a lot of labor management support. The same hospitals that maybe 2 months ago we were pounding on the table for getting those workers $2 more an hour. But when it was time to get them, funding for those hospitals from the state of New York or from DC, we also were able to hold hands and help that big employer, because at the end of the day we do a great community for all. But I was there in Syracuse, New York, where I finished my degree in Syracuse University. And September 2017, Hurricane Maria hit the island of Puerto Rico, and it devastated the island of Puerto Rico. And like me, 100% of the island lost power, and people was fleeing to Central Florida. And I was looking at the visuals and seeing people sleeping in the airport, really like climate change refugees. We were, people is not sure about, we were citizens, but we were acting like refugees, because you remember, Sammy, as well as me, because that's when we met, that people was arriving without documents, social security cards, really in a decimated state. So I talked to my husband. I say, you know what, babe, I think I'm gonna go to Orlando and I'm gonna see how I can help organize. And I was like, someone is gonna hire me, or either hire me or I'll be back. I'll figure it out. And he was like, you do what you have to do, right? It really touched me because when I got here, when I started seeing people, they were so lost, and where they needed to get responses from local agencies, from Florida government, from federal government, the disconnection between Puerto Rico politics and Puerto Rico civic engagement was a world of difference to what
Mhm.
were they were hidden here. So I knew there was a lot of work. So I started, first of all, as a deputy director in faith in Florida, and I worked hand to hand with all the faith community in Central Florida. We were able to relocate a lot of people from hotels to houses, from the streets to hotels. Find them food, help them renew paperwork, all those things, and started giving them that 100,000 Puerto Ricans that are now a massive, huge number, also start to give them the power that they deserve. And here I am.
Yes, I know, and it's been great, and it was a really powerful, sombering, right, and humbling experience to just be thrown together into these spaces. I know that La Mesa was created, right, where all of the organizations came together. And I'm just glad. I'm just glad that, that you came down to Central Florida and just completely immersed yourself in the community and grabbed the bull by the horns and shook things up, and we're better for it. And so you came down here with your family and you've been through a lot. I know that, you faced, health issue in these last couple of years, and thankfully, thank God, right? You landed on the other side of it, well, and healed. And I'm so happy for that. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, your experience and also navigating, right, the healthcare system, because sometimes we talk about it and advocate for it, but then what does that look like when you're in it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the journey through cancer, my cancer diagnosis, it's really one of the things that even pushed me further. Couple of years ago, actually 2002, I got diagnosed with cancer, and I get diagnosed when it was already in a very advanced stage. It was stage 4. It was Hodgkin's lymphoma. You know, we're
Mhm.
talking about it. Hodgkin's lymphoma is a treatable cancer, but it's also, it comes with a lot of, burdens, a lot of cost, a lot of, pain for the family. I was so used to have, good health insurance because I always had a good employer. And I came from, live for so many years in New York. Even back in the day in Puerto Rico, we had in the island, we had coverage. We even had municipal hospitals, if you remember.
Mhm.
Then I started going here to medical appointments, and I found not one, Sammy, but two parents that were exactly like me, stage 4, and they said, "Well, I'm not gonna get treated." And I was like, "What? No, I'm not gonna get treated. I just have this little house. I work so hard to being able to pay for it, and medical debt is gonna take it from my children. So I prefer to die and just leave them something so they can move, you know, it to people." And on top of those two people, I found so many people that were in the middle of the donut hole that were doing too much money to get Medicaid, but too little money to get into the healthcare exchange, into the Obamacare. And because
Right.
Florida doesn't have Medicaid expansion, they are just drowning in medical debt in the middle of nothing, nada, in the limbo, like we will say in
Wow.
Spanish. And it really devastated. I was like, you know what? I, I can, in good conscience, just navigating into the other side, understanding that I know how much it costs my treatment, the money that it costs,
Mhm.
and saying that people is just making the devastating decision of simply die because Florida hasn't decided that we want to heal our people. We decide many, many things in legislative session every year, but we don't decide that we want to do the humane thing and give healthcare to those who need it.
Wow. That's incredible. And so thankfully, right? You've been able to fight through, and and you have a lot of things going on, not just with your battle and your victory, right, with cancer, but also raising a family, the transition here to Central Florida, getting your footing and getting to know the who's who, so you can ruffle some feathers and speak up and advocate. And then now you've decided to run for office. And it's when I heard the news, I was obviously ecstatic, right? Because I know your trajectory, I know what you stand for, and you're a really strong voice for those that are voiceless, right? And so what, because I mean that's a lot, right? It's daunting, it's not for the faint of heart. And so what propelled you? I'm always curious to hear what was that defining moment, because I'm sure people have asked you before,
Hmm.
right? Many times. I'm sure that you might have thought about it, right? From thinking or, you know, uh, projecting or to actually doing it, those are two very different things. And so what got you there to say, that's it, I'm doing this?
So, actually, I never thought I wanted to run for office. I had many times people, trying to tell me, run for city council or run for this or run for state or, and I was like, so honestly, content in my role as a, community leader, for lack of a better word, right? I was happy. I was content. I think that when you go through uh, a series of important events like the displacement of Puerto Ricans in Central Florida, the lack of representation that we have in Tallahassee, the election of leaders that really don't represent us, right? We have leaders that vote against women, vote against workers, vote against climate, vote against immigrants, and when you, come to the other side and you say, you know what, this gotta stop. You either win this race or die trying, and that's what happened. That's really what happened. When I saw that the same players for House District 47, which is the district that I'm running,
Mm-hmm.
House District 47 is a very interesting district. I live here. This my life story in Orlando is here. When I arrived here, I moved to Meadow Woods. I live in Kissimmee. I have a daughter that lives in BBL. I have another daughter that lives in St. Cloud. I have a sister that teaches in St. Cloud. So when I got here in this district, very blue collar, 61% Latino, very young, and majority of the people live and work in this district. People don't commute. The longest that people drive, 30 minutes. So that's telling me, and I know them, right? This is the people that I received in the airport a few years ago, right? They either work at the parks, they either work at the hospital, they they are our teachers, they work in our hotels because this is the heart of that a service economy. And we have an elected official that voted systematically against everything that we represent. Mira, Sami, enough is enough. I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm strong enough, right? I'm not 100%, but you know what? If my 75% of the former version of Maria can give the fight, I'll do it because we don't know tomorrow. Like the Bible says, tomorrow ain't promised to nobody. So we might as well fight and wake up and fight.
Yes, absolutely. And the causes and the things that you're running on, right? Are like you call them Maria's priorities, right? But these are just like human, all the things that people need to live with dignity, quite frankly, right? When you're talking about, affordable housing, about insurance, about good paying jobs and workers' rights, we're talking about safe drinking water, which is a problem and it's going to continue to be a problem, right? Safe neighborhoods, strong public schools. Now the whole mess with reproductive rights, right? That my daughter, when she found out 2 years ago, right, and she was 12 years old, she interrupted a meeting that I was having on Zoom, and she was bawling, crying, and I'm like, "Pero qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa?" At 12 years old, she understood, right? And I felt bad because, that ship has sailed for me in terms of having children, right? And so then I really feel for young people nowadays, right? Because they must be freaking out in so many ways. Education, there's just so many things that are intertwined one with the other. And so you've worked in all of these capacities too, right? And so then how did you figure out those primary buckets to focus on?
It's funny because I was in a conversation the other day, and someone says, "So what are you hearing at the doors, right? Because we're knocking on doors and having." And I was like, I've been hearing the same song, since 2018 when I arrived. There is nothing new. There's nothing. I know this community. There's nothing that I don't know that it was boiling to come. Is sad that we would have to have this conversation today, which is the second anniversary of Roe versus Wade. being destroyed at at a national level. Can you imagine that our daughters here in Florida have less rights than what our grandmothers had in Puerto Rico back in the 70s? That's the
That's
world that
nuts.
we are living.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difficult place, to live. And like I say, the my life journey really prepared me for this moment. Prior to coming, and that was one of the reasons that I wanted to come to Florida. I was a housing commissioner in New York. I was under the Obama administration, and uh, the mayor of Syracuse at the moment was Stephanie Miner. I was a housing commissioner for almost 10 years. So when you hear there's a housing crisis in Florida, I know I'm not going to be able to solve everything, but a couple of things I know. I go to the legislature to break a super majority. So we are, when I get to Tallahassee, we are going to be able to pass some things to work on some issues. I also know legislation. I know policy. I have experience on the issues, and also the other thing that I know is how to create consensus and how to work across, party, faith, identity lines. And I think we have lost that in Florida.
Yes, totally. And so, I mean, I think that your candidacy is very timely. You're absolutely right that we are so grossly underrepresented in this state. I mean, when you look at the numbers and you see that one of every, what, four people identifies as Latino here in the state of Florida, and we have what? How many representatives do we have at the state and Senate levels? In the Senate and the House.
Juana, in the Senate, we have one, Senator Victor Torres.
So two.
Yeah.
Yeah, two. Yes. And so it's pretty worrisome, right? And so I really want to thank you for taking this jump into the rink, and fighting the good fight, and running on purpose and running on principles, right? And all of these values that are so important to us, and really define, right, what humanity, right, is all about. But also Latinos, I gotta say, we talk a lot about, American values, and I think when people say that, they're thinking back in the 50s, 60s, which,
Hmm.
setting aside racism and civil rights and oppression and all of that, it was all about like the Leave It to Beaver, and like the, wholesome, family unit, and being together. And that, I think, is what, the Latino community still brings to the table,
I
this
agree.
sense of, yeah, this sense of responsibility, of, placing extreme value on education, and understanding that, yeah, wealth creation can be done also through, or will be done, right, through home ownership, and entrepreneurship, and better paying jobs. And so, these are all very important things that I think will help the community be in better footing. And so, what are your thoughts about small businesses too, right, and their role here in the state?
I think that the when we talk about business here in Florida, a lot of the legislature tends to uh, favor the big, enterprises, right? There, and we have big enterprises here. We have, Big Sugar, we have Disney, you have, but really, I think we need to help and level the play field for small business and medium-sized business, and we're not doing enough of that. I know we're leaving a lot of um, federal money on the table. I know that we need to make better and stronger the outreach for small business, especially, honestly, to minority business. I think we need to make an extra effort to support those nonprofit organizations and other organizations that are standing in the gap, providing those, business services in Spanish, in Portuguese, and also with the cultural competency that is necessary. These people should be helped and should be supported by the government of Florida, by the state of Florida. And we're not doing enough of that. People is out there trying to fend for themselves. And when you said like we Latinos bring a lot of values, the ideas of hard work, honest work, entrepreneurship, that's the Latino. We all heard the story of Goya, that they were traveling. The founder of Goya was traveling and found a can of sardines, and he decided to found his or So there are now Goya is a giant, but that's just one story, right? There is a lot of legacy of entrepreneurship in the Latino community. And we need to celebrate that and we need to feed that more and we need to support them.
Yeah, totally. And then you've been very involved in the arts. In the arts, and you just mentioned cultural competency. And so what role do the arts play in preserving, right, the arts and culture and heritage, but then also in promoting uh these values or these efforts that you're going to be focusing on, like for example climate change, right?
Mhm. A lot of my life and sooner or later we're gonna get there, right? Are sports and arts, right? That's the core of my life. um my father was a bullfighter, but he also was a painter. He's still alive. And my mother was an actress, so my house was surrounded by art. I think that we need to erase the idea of two things: that art is a luxury, and also that art is only folk art is art that represent our culture. I think both are myths. I think that art is a need of the heart, and that help us as education, as messaging, as bringing the best out of human beings. And also, let's remember that when we talk, for example, about Puerto Rican, yeah, we love our bomba, our plena, our coconut mask. We love that, but we also have great performers. Painters like Antonio Martorell or Daniel Lin that are global artists recognized by the entire world, and they're not not to say that one is better for the other. Is that we need to invest in one so the other can be born as well. And the same with with sports. A lot of what I do is invest. We have a family foundation that invests in support children that are really prodigies. We have found prodigies through sports in Colombia. We have found children in Panama, mostly in Dominican Republic, different areas of the island. And we have support them from they were young kids, 10, 8, 11, and support their careers, and the underground organizations that support them careers, and then find them scholarships to come to the United States. And we have right now kids that are in college that are breaking barriers. Like a lot of people know, we brought Hansel Emmanuel, who is an idol for the handicapped, community. He's missing one arm. He has never worked Paralympics or nothing like that. He plays regular sport. He learned English here in the United States in a little Christian school in Kissimmee, and he is now an idol, right? He has signed by The Rock, by Gatorade, Oakley, and but not all of them are gonna be figures, but all of them are gonna be successful human beings that are gonna tell the world, we are the next generation of Latinos, we are the next generation of Latina, of Latinas, and that's a powerful statement.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm rooting for you. You know that you have my full support. I'm in your corner. I think you're so brave because this is, not an easy mountain to climb, but with your zest and your experience and your intelligence and more importantly, your heart, right? I know that you're gonna get there, and thank the Lord, because we we need a champion like you know, in Tallahassee, to really speak up, right? And push back against the efforts that and the policies that are being put into place to really um limit, right? Ease of like limit access to resources, limit our voices, limit the histories that are told, limit the freedoms that we had, because women's rights now, you know, that's already, yeah, you know, been adversely affected. And so anything that you could do to protect our rights and to change hearts and minds. I want to tell you, Maria, I'm just thankful that you're running, and I can't wait to celebrate your victory
Amen,
in
amen.
November. This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. Thank you for tuning in, and tell your friends to find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to show up and speak up.